Many mothers can recognize when their child somewhere in the world is having a problem. If they've been in an accident or they're hurt in some way, a mother, no matter where she is in the world, generally can experience that something is wrong with her child. How can that happen? Well, it turns out during child development, during the time when there's a placenta and the child's in the womb, stem cells from the child actually migrate in to the maternal system. But studies in Rome at the Vatican, guess what they found? Many of the child's stem cells end up in the nervous system of the mother. So think about it this way. The brain of the mother is like a culture dish that contains stem cells from her own child. And I say, so what's the significance? I say, her child can be on the other side of the world, have an accident, and she can experience it. And all of a sudden says, oh my goodness, a mother is still connected to her offspring because she carries the stem cells. She's the equivalent of the culture dish. So there's a wonderful understanding of A, the experiment, and a natural consequence of women understanding that their own children are in trouble someplace on the planet. So when we put all this together, it suggests that our identity is actually not built into the system. It comes from a source out in the field. Where that source comes from? Well, I can't tell you, I don't know. But it may be related to the movement of the sun and the planets because our identity is influenced by them as well. Now, you say, oh, astrology, that's, that's made up, that's phony. No, let me also give you a very important insight. That the movements of the moon and the planets around us influence life on this planet. So rather than saying astrology, let's call it astrophysiology. For a simple example, the moon influences the menstrual cycle of women. They're on a 28-day cycle, the same cycle as the moon. What a coincidence. No, it's not a coincidence. The moon is influencing the behavior of the woman. Another influence of the moon was found in a study on snails that live in the ocean, marine snails. When snails eat, their behavior is that they move in a spiral. And the significance is profound, because if a snail keeps moving in a spiral, it never crosses over its own tracks. It's always getting fresh material as it's moving through its environment. Well, they did an experiment where they had a track that turned into a Y. And what they would do is put a snail at the beginning of the track, and when it got down to the branch, to the Y, it turned out the snail always went to the right. Well, that was the movement of the spiral. The spiral was always to go to the right. So that's what they anticipated. But it turned out that during the experiments, there were times where the snail would end up going 50-50, 50% to the right and 50% to the left. And they said, well, what was this all about? And when they looked at the date of the time they did these experiments, they found that every time the new moon was present, the snail's behavior went 50-50. So the first thing they thought of, well, the moon affects gravity. So what they did was create an artificial gravity underneath the snails. And at the time of the new moon, they rotated this artificial gravity 180 degrees off from the normal orientation. And guess what? When they created an artificial gravity and moved it, then the snails then continued to go to the right. The point was very clear. The behavior of the snail is tied to the gravity of the planet, but the gravity of the planet is altered by the movement of the moon. And that result is this. Then the moon's phase determined the behavior of the snail. Well, that's a scientific understanding how an extraterrestrial structure such as the moon can alter life on this planet.